So I got to use this thing for a couple of days. My younger cousin Gil, he bought this a couple weeks ago, and he just insisted that I try it and take it out to camp for a couple of days. I was going to take my Formula 3, which I still am, and I'm kind of glad I didn't with all this snow because it doesn't really handle the snow too well. Um, this, on the other hand, handles it superbly. So I figured I'd just talk about um, kind of my experience with it, what I like, what I don't like, what I love, and what I hate about it. Um, so it is a backcountry XRS 850. It is a ridiculous amount of sled. I'm gonna hop back inside because it is getting cold and windy here. So, and we'll chat about it. Yeah, so it is interesting. I don't have a newer sled. I only have the Formula 3. I used to have a Rev back the original Rev days that I also souped up and whatnot. So I don't have a bias towards one sled or another. I don't have money into any of these sleds, so I'm going to try to give you an honest opinion about it and kind of contrast it or compare it with uh, my F3, which is kind of comical. Some of you guys are probably laughing now. The XS, so backcountry, 2014 backcountry 600, which has got the 16 wide, I think it's a 1.5 inch, 137 track in the XS chassis. And also, I'm very honest with myself about the sled people or the sled I want or am drawn to versus the sled that I actually need and is the best use case for me. So yeah, we'll get into that too. So my cousin, this is the ideal sled for him. It is, a deep snow centric, quasi foothills mountain sled, with hybrid mountain geometry on the front end. So somewhat trail, somewhat mountain, probably mostly geared to mountain. He goes and rides the Badlands near Wawa and the hydro lines and basically doesn't really do trails too much. And so it is the ideal sled for him, and it works very well for him, and he drives it very well. For me, I have a different opinion of it. I don't do that type of riding anymore. It's expensive when you smack something, especially with sleds now. Like for instance, my cousin, he went out last week, and one guy folded the tunnel on his new Polaris, and another guy who's actually related to me ripped the entire left side of his access chassis right off, A-arms and everything. The clutch was exposed, and he had to drive it back like that, leaning and kind of side hilling it all the way home. And it's an expensive thing to do that, and quite frankly, those days are over for me. I don't do that anymore. I like to play around in the lakes and in the flats, and maybe in some deep snow treed areas. And I like the single track trails. And I've now, in my area where I live, Atikokan, it's much flatter, but they have really nice groomed trails, and they have a very active club, and they have it's a pretty nice spot to actually do groomed trail riding, which I thought I'd be bored, really boring, but it's not. It's really fun. Yeah. Anyway, this sled, some of the things I love about it, it is awesome in the deep snow. The thing is just unstoppable in the deep snow. Not in the tight technical stuff, especially in, this type of terrain, it's a bit of a bear to haul around, but in the open areas and in the steep snow and deep snow, and it is awesome. It's just ridiculous how little body English it takes to get yourself kind of where you want, and to get it to carve and get it to just go where you want. It's just really, really nice for that. It is obvious that the Gen 4 is a mountain sled. Back in the past where they built the trail sled and then they modified it for the mountains just to shut those guys up and keep them satisfied. Well, it's the opposite now. The G4 is a mountain chassis with definitely mountain geometry. and you know the MXZ is enough of a trail sled stuff bolted onto it to hopefully shut people up in BRP's eyes, I think. But so things I love, yeah, definitely awesome in the snow, wicked good traction. It's geared pretty good, I think, for what it is. Um, it I like the stand-up riding position on it. And the motor is like freaking ridiculous. I can't even. Oh, yeah, I don't even understand how like trail guys are like, oh, I need more power in my 850. Like, are you nuts? No, you don't. You don't need more power than 850 on a groom trail. Like, I ride groom trails with my 600, and I rarely wind that thing out. Um, if you need something like that in like a 137 with a 1.5 paddle, like it is borderline dangerous. How fast the damn thing is. And if anybody needs more power than that, like, I'm sorry, you got rocks in your head, or you're just trying to like compare egos with each other. Um, yeah, it's just stupid fast. It's like, even that's stupid fast. I can't imagine that in like a 129. It'd just be bonkers. Um, so, so the only thing about the 850 is it vibrates like a Harley. It's very on off, at least in this sled. It's on off when you're doing the tighter stuff in the trees. It's just not the ideal sled. You're better off getting a Scandic if you're going to do that. Um, I think, yeah, the clutching just seems, and I've set the belt deflection, I've cleaned the clutches, I've set the track tension properly. I've made sure the chain is tensioned properly before I took it out, because I wanted to have it like everything ship shape before I even started talking about it, because I didn't want to, have a subpar maintenance done on the sled before I like started shooting my mouth off about it. Um, yeah, and the tight technical stuff, it's very grabby on the low end, and it's not a fun thing to drive. It's very touchy with the throttle, and very grabby on the clutch with some tight technical stuff where you really got to crawl. Not a sled for crawling. It's a sled for like, you want to track speed to get out of stuff. You don't want to. It's not really one for floating around in the bush like a Scandic is, or an Expedition type thing. And it's not clutch that way. It's just way too. It's way too hyper, or jittery, like it's had too much coffee. So that's something I don't really like about it. But that's just maybe the wrong tool for the job type thing for me. Another thing, the chassis is wicked cold. That is this, like, those windshields are stupid useless, but I can see for getting stuck on the mountain or hills and just flipping it over. It's, that's what that's for. I understand that. So that's fine. Some things I really don't like about it are, I hate that seat. I hate the riding position, like just for general riding, like all round riding, trails, a little bit on the lakes like this, in the bush. The seat just jams you forward all the time, and the chassis is way too forward biased. Like, I'm interested to try a Renegade that's set up more for trails with the trail front end, to see if it handles better, and maybe it will, and I'll reserve total judgment. But I just find, for hard pack stuff, that chassis just wants to cram you into the gas tank. And it's like so forward biased that I think the suspension on the front is super twitchy. The Raz has always been a little bit twitchy, but this thing is wicked twitchy. It just wants to jump all over the place. And I've set the shocks, like, I've recorded my cousin's settings, and I've set the entire suspension, the compression, rebound, everything for like exactly how I would want it set up. And I can't tune the twitchiness out of it. It's just way too twitchy. And I can't even imagine, this is a long track, it should actually push in and not be twitchy. I can't even imagine that in a 129. Even with the trail front end, there's just so much damn ski pressure in it that, and once you tune that middle shock enough to take the ski pressure away, I just can't see. It's very unbalanced. Like, the rear suspension in this is awesome. The C motion, it's really all around a nice suspension, but that front end, I think it needs a taller, like the A arms need to be spread out at the mounting points in the spindle, so that it needs to be higher. The top mounting point needs to be higher. And I think the suspension itself, like if you look at my hand, the mounting points on the chassis need to be swept back a bit more to give it a bit more caster. Um, and I think that would kind of tune out the jittery twitchiness of it. That's one thing I really don't like about it. I do not like the seating position. I think it's too forward biased. I just like it's obvious it's a mountain chassis. I just don't think it's going to work well for the trail. Like I said, I'll reserve judgment till I jump on a 137 or a 129 and check it out. I tend to go 137 because I do like to venture off in the powder once in a while. But I think that's too long for a trail, or it's a too much of an aggressive track for the trail. It's just really weird having 10 feet of sled hanging out the back of you. And trying to think of what else here that I like don't like about it. I do like the serviceability of it, you know, compared to the XS chassis. It's nice working on it. I've had all the panels off and whatnot, and it's kind of cool that way. The shock package is actually quite nice as far as the, you know, given the limitation of the suspension. The shock package is pretty awesome. The XRS shocks are ideal for what I want to do. I'm not a Ricky Racer wannabe, so I don't need them super stiff. I actually really like the way they perform. I'm more into monotubes because I don't like the maintenance involved with the piggybacks and the seals, how they wear out quicker. But that is a nice set of shocks, and definitely I could see having one like a shock package like that on a sled for sure. So it's worth it if you're into that. Trying to think of what else here. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, like I said, of the motor and how vibey and like grabby, and it's not smooth at low end. It is a mid-range like top end motor. That sucker like just goes. It is like scary how much it just hooks. Like I've driven fast sleds, but this thing just is nuts. Like you want to catwalk it. It's just so stupid easy to do. Yeah, like it's an animal. If you're doing that type of riding like my cousin does, like it's an awesome sled for that, definitely. Uh, so compared to an XS though, so this will be interesting because like I said, I'm not biased and I'm very honest with myself about what type of sled that I would want. Um, the XS handles way better on the trail. It corners way more predictably. It just rails compared to this thing. And like I said, yes, I know it's a backcountry. You know, don't blow gasket dudes who have like 137s or 129s. Like, again, I'm reserving judgment. But the XS is just so well planted on the trail. And I like the balance of the chassis better because the seat is flatter. You can move backwards or forwards. I can stretch out and sit more like a sit down chassis sled with my feet in a nicer position. Or if I want to move forward and really like get aggressive, then I can do that on that chassis. I find it really hard with this seat and the way this chassis is set up. So there's that. I'm just used to that XS. It just fits me better. And I find it is just a nicer, easier chassis to handle on the trail. And just generally for what I do, I don't know if a G4 is going to be something I'm actually going to invest in. I tend to not buy new sleds. I like to buy like used sleds and then make them really kick ass. So I might do that. If I find a G4 is the right fit for me, I will wait till there's a used one with a messed up motor and I'll repair it and modify it and whatever. And then like compare those two sleds to the F3. And I know everybody's rolling their eyes, but I'm sorry, on the Groom Trail, the F3 kills everything. That thing corners better than any new sled out there, bar none. It's just, that's what the sled was made to do. It goes fast in a straight line. It's a super efficient chassis for like it freewheels like crazy. Yeah, it goes around corners like a madman. It sucks in the bumps. It's not very refined. Other than Groom trails and flat lakes, the sled is pretty much useless. But I will say that like not many things can hang with an F3 on a Groom trail. I'm sorry. It's just so low and the weight is so spread out. and everything's just so sucked in and hunkered down, it just stays planted. And it's really an awesome sled for that. And besides, they'll never make a sled that sounds as good as a triple. I hope they do. We'll see tonight. I'm going to tune in and see how the what the announcement is from Skidoo, but I'm not holding my breath on a triple or anything like that. But yeah, honestly, if it was me right now, this moment, and you put a gun to my head and said, what kind of sled would you want? I would actually buy that 2014 backcountry in the XS chassis, and probably like the 600 to me is like just the perfect trail motor. It's got just enough torque. There's a bit of a flat spot that I could probably tune out with a bit of porting and a different pipe and a little clutching and whatnot. But it's just such a sweet, smooth, reliable motor. I don't have to worry about, and it's still got enough power for what I do and how I drive. I'm not a speed junkie or anything like that. So, and it's good in the soft snow. It handles really well. It's like can crawl along. I can pull a sleigh with it. It's comfortable. So I would probably buy that and actually make a project out of it. And in fact, I might do that next year, possibly. We'll see. And maybe sell the F3 stuff, as a package deal. I have 3 chassis and enough to build a whole complete long track sled, plus, a bunch of motors and new pistons and all kinds of stuff, a bunch of clutches. So I might sell it as a package deal. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see. So anyway, yeah, that's my take on the G4 and the XS chassis. I just think for what I do, this particular sled, definitely the wrong tool for the job for me. I will maybe make another video if I get to try a 137. I think ideally I'd like to try a Renegade X, or even just a Renegade, whatever, with a 600R, the new one, in a 137 with a 1.5 track would be kind of what I would be going for, I think. And if I ever get the chance to try one of those this winter, I will definitely update and change my opinion of the G4 based on my experience thus far. I've tried a 900 Ace, and that is also a very nice engine that I would definitely consider. It's got a lot of what I look for in the low to mid range. I'm not, like I said, not a top end guy, but the 600 is such a damn reliable motor for a 2-stroke that it or the 900 Ace would be kind of what I would be looking for. I'd have to try the 900 in a new chassis to see how that is, because I think extra weight in the front might be actually a good thing for the G4 with the longer track. And it looks like it might have a flatter seat. So the wide body, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to update this and see how things evolve here. And if I like the G4 a lot, then I'll probably wait a year or two till some used ones come on the market for cheap and snap one of those up. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to go out on again today, and it looks like this will be ideal conditions, especially on the lake for it. And I'm going to probably swap out with my F3 tomorrow, and I'll do a video on that too, and just show you guys what I've done to the F3, all the smart things I did, all the stupid things I did that I had to correct, and a general rundown of it. So stay tuned for that, and and I'll be talking to you soon.